Hi, welcome back to the Laughing Tavern. It's time for another Critical Breakdown, the series where we look at Campaign 4 of Critical Role, the lessons we can learn from Brennan as well as the players, and we dive into a little bit of each episode. So this time up is episode 2, Broken Wing. What do we think? What can we learn? Let's take a look. Before we dive into episode 2, a little note. As of this recording, episode 4 is going to be aired tonight. Episode 3 was last week, but I have not watched it. I haven't seen any spoilers. I haven't watched any content on Critical Role, solely to make sure that until I get caught back up due to my medical issues, that any opinions and theories and thoughts I have on the episodes are solely off of the ones I've seen. In this case, episode 1 and episode 2. So just keep that in mind. Episode 1 ended on a cliffhanger with the box upstairs in Hal's house starting to rumble and come to life. But that's not where episode 2 picked up. Now, I like what Brennan did here, and we'll talk more about the things I liked about Brennan later in this episode. It picks up with a flashback of the Falconers' Rebellion with Cadigan, not Cardigan. Cadigan, Thimble, Thiazi, and Azune in a battle in the Falconers' Rebellion. Very cool. I like role-playing memories. That's awesome. There's a couple things to keep in mind, and we're going to talk about that later. So it opened right into the action. I'm loving Brennan's cold opens for these episodes before we get to the ads and the merch. I like how they do this. It dives right into the episode for 10 to 20 minutes, which is great. It's not just first 5 minutes ad read, etc. Love Sam's ads, but I want to get into the episode, so I love that they're doing this. Man, these first 2 episodes, it's a lot of lore. There's a lot of name mentions and name drops and throwbacks. There's a lot to keep track of, and as somebody who has a hard time hearing, I've sat there and tried to keep up with all the lore, pausing and rewinding and taking notes. It's rough. It doesn't double the amount of time it takes to watch an episode, but it gets close. So when it comes to lore, there are people here on YouTube that do a much better job at nitpicking into everything and diving deep into single words and names. I'm going to leave that up to them. I'll hit the high points here. There was a lot to go through in this episode, especially. Let's start with the glyph that Azune thought he saw on Thiazi's body before the execution. It was there. They did find a piece of ceramic or pottery type thing on Thiazi's body. And after doing a little bit of investigation into it, it was conjuration and illusion magic, which is what Azune was looking for. However, the conjuration was an illusion as well. So somebody knew what was going on and what to look for. And they made sure that Azune was going to see what he thought he should have seen. We also learned that there are 2 people that knew of the plans about Thiazi that have been unaccounted for. Sid, who turns out to be Taylor's brother, and Casimir, who is a member of the Crow Keepers. Crow feathers were found at the safe house, the site where Thimble got attacked. They were found by Cadigan. And I'm still not sure about Cadigan, solely because of that. I don't know if they're trying to set up the Crow Keepers as fall guys for this or what. So they're looking into those 2 people, looking for them, trying to find out more information about them. We learn a little bit more about the Shapers War and the Falconers' Rebellion. Many of the players were members of the Torn Banner under Loza Blade, who is the person that Taylor escorted to the funeral. They disbanded as part of the amnesty that was given at the end of the Falconers' Rebellion. And before Loza left the funeral, she gave Taylor the case that contains the actual Torn Banner that they served under. We also learned fairies serve mortals. Thimble was given as a wedding gift to Thiazi and Yanessa. So I'm getting Harry Potter house elf vibes here. And she makes a very pointed comment at one point during the episode that she has free will. And she came to serve Thiazi and become his friend. So it's not just a servitude thing, but there's definitely more there in regards to the fairies serving mortals. Before we continue, no throwing to advertising rich today. I am going to be advertising rich. Our sponsor of this episode is Only Crits. They're a great partner. You can head to the link in the channel, go to Only Crits and enter the code MesoCrits for 10% off of your order. But also, Only Crits has an upcoming Kickstarter launching November 1st. They've teamed up with the folks here on YouTube, Pack Tactics, Kobold and Gator themselves, to create Kobold and Gator dice. I've done a preview video of this Kickstarter, link in the description. Head on over there, click that notify me on launch button so you can be notified when they launch on November 1st. Because if you're one of the backers in the first 48 hours, you'll get Gator's birthday book, a free adventure. So head on over there, check out Only Crits in our links down below. Thanks as always, Only Crits, for being a partner. Appreciate it. There's a lot of house intrigue, especially in these first 2 episodes. Now, I'm not a big fan of the political intrigue, the house intrigue. I just don't like it. Even things like Game of Thrones, I got it to a point. I liked it just a little bit, but by throwing in the action around it, it made it worth watching. I don't like it at my table. I don't like it as a player. And I'm not a big fan of it as a viewer. I even had issues in Campaign 2 when they had to deal with issues between the Kryn Dynasty and the Dwendalian Empire. So, but I know coming up after these first 4 episodes that they're going to be breaking into their tables. The Schemers table will not be one I'm going to be a fan of watching too much, but I will because I love Critical Role. Later on in this episode, I'm also going to discuss who I think will be at each table, so come back for that. So stay tuned for that later, rather. And but there's a lot of house intrigue, a lot. The houses are starting to take over the Revolutionary Guard and the Penteveral, which is the university where Murray is a member. They made a deal to the current president resigns solely so that the students can continue to cast magic on the school grounds. So the houses are starting to hold power over the probably businesses and the services being offered in the city. So that's kind of a takeover kind of thing. Octus is on the run from his family, House Taconis. So that's why Octus keeps going to disguise self when he's out in public. They believe he's the one that helped plan Thiazi's rescue, which of course they're right. He's been in hiding ever since. And that may play a part in the table that Octus joins, which, like I said, we'll talk about that later. We got a huge reveal about House Holovar and the demons. More on this a little bit later when we talk about Wiccander and Tyranny. And the big reveal at the end of the episode. The box that was upstairs in Hal's house at the end of episode 1, turns out it's actually a coffin that held a celestial named Obalad. After the Shapers' War, the Celestials went mad, basically, and went ravening through the countryside, basically, so all Celestials had to be killed. Bolair actually touched a similar mask, and that is why they are how they are now. So like I said, there's a lot of lore. I'm sure I missed things, and I probably got things wrong. Let me know down in the description what I missed, what I got wrong. What lore are you looking forward to learning about? What's your favorite lore so far? Let us know. Let's talk about Liam really quick and what we learned from the players. The players are all great, of course, in these episodes. They throw themselves into their moments, into their characters. They step back and let the other players have their moments. So remember to do that as a player. You're not the only character. Step back and make sure everybody at the table gets their moment and gets to enjoy their moment fully without you interrupting. When it comes to Liam, I don't think there's a better player for Critical Role in terms of creating things in their backstory or creating moments at the table to bring the other players in, to bring the other characters in. Yes, last campaign, Campaign 3, Chetney had his toys that he would hand out. But that's great. However, Liam takes it a step further. In Campaign 2, for Mighty Nine, Caleb had his tower, his magic spell, and Liam went and created different rooms specifically for each player. It was like an hour and a half in game just describing this place. Well, in this time, as Hal, there was a moment nearing the end of the funeral, after everybody had left, when he let his family and Loza have a special moment. Check this out.
But instead, I'll let my daughter and I speak in a way that's best for Thiazi. And I grab my own lyre from off of a mantelpiece here. Hero, play Broken Wing. And Hero starts to play quietly on a lyre a song that is familiar to anyone who was around for the Falconers' Rebellion. It was played in taverns and halls and military tents early in that conflict when people were hopeful for the change that was being sought after in the Falconers' Rebellion. And as Hero, my youngest, begins to play the main melody of that song, Hal harmonizes and plays around her on his. I taught her how to play. We've played for many years together.
As the song lilts, you see Loza Blade still here, waiting for Teor's return, who fought and was Thiazi's commander in the Falconers' Rebellion. A stand taken in this world by the brave and just when they realized that a world that had risen up against the tyranny of the gods had, in the span of a few short generations, replaced that tyranny with ones of their own devising. And Loza does not actually shed a tear, but you see her eyes water as she looks at Thiazi. Another name added to a long list of people that she's had to say goodbye to. And here in this place with family surrounding, the song picks up. She hums along to it. Its meaning has changed over the years, from what it meant at the beginning to what it meant at the end to what it means now.
I think as Hal supports his daughter's playing through his own plucking of the lyre strings, he uses thaumaturgy to dim every light in the house down low and lower to nothing except for one that rests close to Thiazi and to Loza, so that that light is shared between the two of them as the world falls away in the heart of that song.
So you can see just the fact that Liam thought about doing this in character, creating the drama, working with the other players to create something special. That is just awesome. So as a player, you can do this too. Talk to your DM about setting up a moment like this. Talk to your DM about letting you run with it for a couple minutes. Just, you can do it. And it just means that you've bought in, that you're trying to make sure everybody's getting involved. It is just awesome, and it creates such wonderful moments. Let's talk about Brennan and the things he did as the Dungeon Master that I liked or disliked. One of the best things you can do, and I do something similar in my game, is make death saves be more than just a simple dice roll. In my game, if a player is rolling a death save, after they roll the dice, success or failure, they have to describe a moment from their past, like their life is passing before their eyes. This allows the player to think about their character in more than just simple terms. You want to think about it, you want to create things. Brennan in this episode does something similar.
Cadigan, on the ground, describe your character for us in this moment and describe the injury that is starting to bleed out past the point of repair.
Oh yeah, he's sliced up. Basically, He's always fighting low, so all of his injuries are up high in his body. Shoulders, neck, he's got like puncture wounds super close to lungs and heart. He's jacked from the waist up mostly, yeah.
So do it when you can. Create roleplay moments out of simple dice rolls when it's appropriate, if it's possible, when you have the time to do so. Anything you can do that adds to the drama of the game and makes players think about their characters deeper will just be beneficial to you in your table. Brennan doesn't tell the players what they see. He takes the time to let the players tell him what they see or what they created. In this case, in this episode, he was talking to Sam Wiccander about his home. And instead of telling Sam what his home looked like, he had Sam tell the players what his home looked like. Again, this lets the players dive into their characters a little bit deeper and actually think about it more than just that. It's where did they grow up? What do they see on a daily basis when they were living here? That's an awesome thing to do. Another thing that Brennan did was he had a player roll a medicine check to stabilize an unconscious player. It's per the rules, you can do this. I never see DMs offering this, and I never see players asking to do this. It doesn't bring the player above 0, right? So they don't regain hit points like they would with Healing Word or Cure Wounds. But they do stop rolling death saves. And he actually set a low DC, a DC of 10. Now, I'm thinking part of the reason why he did this was because in the flashback, he had 2 players roll and they failed, which meant they were going to start rolling death saves. Now, I'm not a fan of doing this. If you are in a flashback, having the players help describe what they see is awesome, but having them roll the dice can be tricky, especially if you're not an experienced DM, especially death saves. What if one of those 2 characters failed their death saves and died? Brennan, as a DM, would have had to have something ready to bring to the table. A cleric with Revivify, something like that, in order to, because the character is obviously alive, so something had to have happened. Now, you can work that into another story beat, awesome. But if you're a new DM, don't bring dice into any situation that you are not ready or not capable of handling the outcome. I've mentioned this many times in my DM tips videos. The second you bring the dice in, the dice take control. You have no control anymore at that point. So it could be a success or it can be a failure. And if you're talking death saves, you're talking the ultimate failure in Dungeons & Dragons. So I think that's why he set a low DC on the medicine check, was to make sure that that player stabilized, because it wasn't going well and it could have gone very badly. Brennan has always done a great job of establishing precedents. In episode 1, by having Thimble roll death saves, he was showing that death is on the table. By having Thiazi executed, death is on the table. Well, in this episode, there came a moment when he wanted to make sure the players knew you just can't touch everything that comes across your path. Don't press every button. Don't open every box. He did this in a great moment. Let's watch this one.
If I reach forward with one and just like nudge 2 pieces together.
Give me a Constitution saving throw.
Why? Natural 1.
Taisha, on a nat 1 Constitution saving throw.
No.
You warmed up this time. You did this.
Oh, no.
We're going to be really clear. This is episode 2, and I'm going to set a really important, let's call it precedent, about touching stuff. Taisha, you touch one of the flakes, and Hal, what you see immediately in this moment is, first of all, everybody downstairs hears as Taisha, you touch this fragment in the center. The fragment drops through the velvet, which itself, the velvet drops into a conical swirling mist. The mist spirals down, spreading as the velvet magically transmutes into mist, swirling down, down, down as the fragments instantaneously fall in until every velvet or lining of this box is instead thick, ice-cold mist. And amongst the fragments that disappear and the fabric, the other thing that disappears in this moment is your consciousness as you collapse to the ground.
Establishing precedents early, especially in the first couple of sessions, let the players know what to expect going forward. Guarantee you going forward, and it happened in this episode, and we'll talk about that in a second, again, where a situation presented itself, but the player stopped and thought about it for a second because of what he did there with Abria. You can guarantee you, Abria will never press another button or reach out and touch something that's not been identified, that hasn't been investigated. Because she almost died. That was crazy. But you can do it, especially if you do it early in the campaign. It'll make for a much better story going forward. Another thing Brennan did, which is awesome and I love, is Brennan, for the most part, sits back and lets the players interact amongst themselves, role-play amongst themselves. But he will step in with time for a lore drop, for information that the players may not know. But in this case, he jumped in when the discussion between Thimble and Valus, Aura and Ashley's character, were starting to have a discussion about what Valus was doing there, what Ashley's character was doing there. And it was starting to ramp up a little bit. It was starting to get a little heated. Brennan jumped in as an NPC and basically showed them that they were both right and that there really wasn't anything for Thimble to be worried about in terms of Valus, at least not right now. So I like how he did this. And you can do this too at your table, is jump in to stop things and have a way to do it, such as an NPC, giving information to the players, especially if it helps guide a direction. If they're in analysis paralysis, or if two players are starting to get a little upset with each other, you can jump in with information to stop it. My game, there is no PvP, so once players get to a certain point, the fight's going to end. So as the DM, you can jump in with an NPC to stop that. In the first critical breakdown, we talked about how I like how Brennan has scaling DCs, which is great. I do it for some of my DCs, but he does it for almost all his skill checks. What I'm not sure if I like it or not, is that Brennan announces the DCs. 15 will get you something, 20 will get you something better. I'm not sure if I like doing that. I don't know if announcing the DCs is a good thing to do at the table. Now, it does create anticipation on that roll when all the players know, all right, if they roll a 15, we're going to get all the information we wanted, right? Because you got a +5. Great. Oh, if he rolls an 18, we know we're getting everything. But it can also, you have to play with a table full of players that you know you can trust won't fudge their results. Maybe not the dice roll, but maybe add a +6 instead of a +5 to hit that DC of 20. So I'm not sure how I feel about that. What about you? Do you like how he announces the DCs they need to hit? Or would you rather he kept that information secret until after the roll? Let us know in the comments. Something else Brennan does that I love is he gives players options as an NPC and also above the table. Let's take a look at what happened here when Marisha and Taliesin were examining the coffin, but were afraid to open it.
Question for you. Have you opened the box or left it closed?
Until we know what it says on the outside, I would say not.
Yeah, I would identify before open.
Bolaire, as curator here, you see wizardry at work. This craft of the Pentevral. And I think seeing wizardry here, Murray, without any roles necessary, the ethos of your school, alive and well in your heart, there will be limits to how much truth you can glean if you don't look in that box. Now, it's extremely prudent not to open it. Far be it from me to tell you to open it. And I would say even above table, I'm totally fine if you don't. But that conflict is here. The conflict of truth, great truth.
So you can see, above table, he told them, you're going to get the same information, basically. It's not going to matter if you open it, but you know you'll get more information, but you don't need to open it to get information, right? So we gave the players the options, let them decide to open it or not. That way it's their result. It's their decision, they own it. But giving the player the option is a good thing to do, especially if they're, again, stuck with analysis paralysis about what to do. So you can do that easily at your table. Jump in when needed and let the players know. Again, we saw all 13 players at the table. Brennan's handling this masterfully. It's just amazing that he does. He spends half an hour, 45 minutes, an hour with each little group and brings players in and out as needed. Man, he's doing a great job, and I'm betting he's going to be happy once they get to 4 tables or 3 tables. I'm not sure if those tables will all be in the same episode, like an hour for each table, or if they're going to break it up that these 3 episodes are for this table, right? We'll have to wait and see. But I'm betting he's going to be happy to have 4 or 5 players sitting in front of him and none waiting in the wings behind him. But he's doing a great job at doing it. Brennan also, he switches on a cliffhanger between the groups. He goes to break on a cliffhanger. He ends the episode on a cliffhanger. I'm going to keep mentioning this because this is the one thing that as a DM you can do that will instantly add suspense and drama and get your players talking and anxious to get back. Ending a cliffhanger, whether it's a break or the session, end on a cliffhanger, end before a battle, end after a big reveal. If you do that, your players will want to get right back into it. All right, it's time to talk about Wiccander, Sam Riegel's character. Come to find out, he was the only one in the family in the light, so to speak, right? The rest of them, it turns out, they knew it was all bull, including the demons, Tyranny, and all her sisters. They brought Sam down to the bowels of House Holovar, right? Into a room that had 2 warhounds that were barking. Come to find out, they were barking to spell magic, which I love and I'm absolutely stealing. Having creatures be able to cast spells like that, especially for darting something or protecting something, love it. Well done. Gonna steal that one. They took him down into the basement, and he knew that this is where they were getting the filament from. This white acidy stuff that burned a worker when a crate fell. When he opened up the box, there was a 30-foot tall angel basically being siphoned off of his blood. And that's what the filament is that Sam's ingested and that they're sending somewhere. Love it. Great reveal. I knew there was something off with the whole family. I knew the demons were part of something more than that what they were showing. Now the question becomes, is Sam a celestial warlock or is he a sorcerer? If you look at his stats, and we talked about this a little bit last week, I wasn't buying Sam as a cleric. Clerics don't have wisdoms of 10. Sam has a wisdom of 10, but his charisma is an 18. So that's leaning warlock, leaning sorcerer. He's been ingesting the filament. So it may not be something innate. And he says this from his grandfather, but he's ingesting the filament. So warlocks give their followers powers. And Sam's been ingesting the filament. So is this how he could be tied to his patron through the blood that he's been ingesting, which would make him a celestial warlock? Or because it's his grandfather, is this magic that he has innate and that would make him a sorcerer? I think it's 50-50, and with Sam you never know because he's the ultimate troll in terms of reveals like this. So I'm looking forward to it. What do you think? Is Sam a celestial warlock, or is he some kind of sorcerer? Let us know in the comments. Let's talk about who I think will be at each table, starting with episode 5. The first 4 episodes are what they're calling the overture, which is basically their intro to everything, right? Let's start with what I think is the easiest table to determine, Seekers. I think Bolaire, Murray, Taisha, and Velas will be at the Seekers table. These are the 4 players that lore and knowledge seem to be the most important, especially Bolaire, Murray, and probably Velas as well. Taisha can go a little bit either way, but I'm putting her there because, for one, I think you need 2 tables of 4 and 1 table of 5. So I think that balances it out. They've got a nice little mix. They've got the warlock, they've got the wizard, they've got a druid, and they've got the paladin. So they've got a little bit of everything. So the Seekers are going to be hitting the knowledge and exploration. And so I think those 4 fit perfectly at that table. The last 2 tables are arguably where I think there can be the most interaction with, and where I can argue each one of these could be at the other table. Let's start with the soldiers. Teor, Cadigan, Sir Julian, and Octus. Now, I know you may be wondering why Octus. Well, Octus is on the run from his family. What better thing for him to do then is to get out of the city? And I'm betting the soldiers are going to be leaving the city. So you'll have Octus along with them. With Teor and Cadigan, you get 2 people that were in the Falconers Rebellion on the same team, working for the Torn Banner. And you'll get Sir Julian in there to round out the mix. Plus, I think he probably wants to get out of the city too, away from his family. And it could bring in an interesting interaction between Sir Julian and Octus once it's revealed who Octus is, because Sir Julian's family is the one that are helping look for Octus. So it could be very interesting. Now, that one I could be totally wrong about 4 of them. And Teor could easily be over on the Schemers because he may be working with Sam. Talking about the Schemers, we have Wiccander, Tyranny, because I think those 2 will always be at the same table. Thimble, Azune, and Hal. Thimble was one I almost put over at the soldiers' table. She would do very well there, but being a rogue, and they already have Sir Julian as a fighter rogue, so I think Thimble's thievery and ability to get into tiny places, being a fairy, will help the Schemers out more. So we'll have to wait and see. Let me know in the comments who you think will be at each table. Whoa, where am I totally wrong at? Let me know. Be sure to check out the other episodes in this series and everything else to do for Critical Role. Check out Only Crits. Remember to be nice to each other, accept each other, and love each other. And may your gold be plentiful, your games well played, and your tables full of laughter.